I can't sit here and say it wasn't a good series, but how I kind of wrap this up is, Colin, I don't know if you were a Game of Thrones fan. I was a huge Thrones guy. I loved everything but the final season. And it seemed like it was like this was that series. I compared to that because you had everything you wanted. The ending just stunk. And where I go, Colin, you've done the show long enough. I like to pinpoint where kind of things went haywire. Once again, it involves T.J. McConnell keeping them in the game with about 4 minutes left to go in the third quarter. It was 69-64. It's a 5-point game. The quarter ended 81-68 in favor of the Thunder. The Pacers were never able to close that gap in the fourth quarter, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and company were really able to keep them at bay. My final prognosis of the finals was we were robbed of a great Game 7 with the injury of Tyrese Haliburton. And Haliburton, I think when you look at these playoffs in general, I'm not going to remember these playoffs as OKC being an all-time great. I'm going to remember Tyrese Haliburton and the run that was made. Do I think kind of both these teams were anomalies? Probably. I don't know. Oklahoma City seems like they're pretty set up for a couple of years. It wouldn't surprise me if they two-peat at all. But what I'm going to remember from the playoffs is Tyrese Haliburton, not Oklahoma City winning the title.
Didn't you get the feel, especially post-game, they were excited, but they weren't that excited. I almost got the sense that because this team is so young, they're the youngest team to win an NBA championship since the 1977 Trailblazers, by the way, and being such a young team, they haven't necessarily had the thick and thin that most of these teams have. If you think about Boston for a second, Boston, they've been waiting to have that when they lost in 2022. They've gotten to the conference finals time and time again. They've been flirting with a championship all those years. You could go through the Nuggets. They had a ton of terrible, terrible losses throughout the postseason. All these teams have had sort of like sluggish, terrible, deep postseason runs that end in sort of agony. Mm-hmm. The Thunder, they lost last year to Dallas, but that was with a team filled with 21-year-olds. They were challenged, but they haven't had they don't have the battle scars that a normal traditional championship team has. And I think you got that sense post-game. They were excited, but I mean, they weren't. This wasn't Kevin Garnett, screaming up into the clouds after never making a big run.
The perfect way, relief. There was a sense of relief with some of those champions. You went back to the Celtics with Kevin Durant. Let's go back to Steph Curry. Finally, 2-3 years ago, finally, quote unquote, winning one on his own. Go back to 2016 when LeBron James literally screamed at the camera that it was for the city he was on. So there's to that point, I like what you said there. There's a sense of relief with some of these guys when they finally win. Now, this was, I want to give credit to the Thunder and one person specifically within the organization, Sam Presti. Sam Presti, I thought, really maneuvered the draft, maneuvered free agency. We talked in our pre-show meeting before Russo and Rizzo on how do you build a championship caliber roster now? It's no longer trading Andrew Wiggins and getting Kevin Love and pairing him up with Kyrie. It's no longer getting Kevin Garnett from the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were never able to close the gap for Garnett for the Boston Celtics. Those eras are over. The new era is drafting, finagling your draft picks to put, and maybe the players that are on your current team, a la the Houston Rockets and Durant, which we'll get to in a second, and then using the assets you've acquired to put yourself over the next level. You saw that happen with Oklahoma City. You've seen that happen with a couple of other recent champions. I think the dynamic of the NBA is starting to change a bit. And yes, I do agree with you. Colin, they didn't even know how to pop the bottle of champagne.
I can't blame them for
They
that.
didn't even know.
Bunch of 20-year-olds.
You're talking to a kid who worked at a bar for 5 years as well. You got to know how to do that, Kyle. That was a Bush League celebration. Bush League celebration on that. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Thunder and them being a champion. I think Theo hit the nail on the head for me, at least how I feel. They're a forgettable champion. They're a forgettable champion. And it goes back to the point that I made. Halliburton is what I'm going to remember this as. I'm not going to remember this playoffs as the Thunder being one of the best teams of all time with 68 wins. I'm going to remember Tyrese Haliburton.
I don't.
And the injury.
Until they win 3 in a row. And then what are you going to do? Then you're going to remember them.
Yeah, could it be the start of something special? For sure. And
they are more poised for success than any team we've seen for long-term success that we've seen in a long time. Their 12th pick in the draft, Nikola Topic, did not play a minute all year. And he was supposed to be a top 5 pick. He's a 6'6" Serbian point guard, and they got him waiting to make his summer league debut. They got 2 first-round picks. They got a bunch of guys who are 23 years old.
When do they have to pay people? When do they have to pay?
Gilgeous-Alexander, they've paid. They've paid Hartenstein. Holmgren's probably got another year or
Williams,
two.
Holmgren.
Yeah, but the
you
thing
think
is,
when
like,
you start to break that up,
they're going to have to but then they have the picks.
There's been 7 straight different champions in the NBA. I do agree with you that Oklahoma City could be the team that could two-peat and whatnot. I mean, right now, the team that looks the best and poised for another title is Oklahoma City. We could argue Durant, and I know we will later. But at the same, and the Rockets, but at the same, to your token, I'll give you the credit there. Oklahoma City seems like the favorite, especially with all the injuries in the Eastern Conference.
I don't think I'm ready to say that the title was forgettable, but I think there's something to the idea that we haven't seen this team in the postseason a ton. Deep runs, losing emphatically, 7-game series. Yet you saw that with a lot of different teams. And you almost get used to them. So there's a sense of, I like the word relief, when they finally get through. There was no finally get through moment for the Oklahoma City Thunder. That you felt that with the Pacers, because the Pacers have not been able to sort of break that next wall as a franchise, and the Thunder haven't either. But you saw the Pacers there last year. I don't know. You had a little bit more of a desperation sense with them, and a little bit of sense of relief, that storybook nature. You didn't get that with the Thunder. And I think you sensed that when they were celebrating on the stage. There was a moment. Yes, they had an all-time great regular season. But this is not a team that has generally struggled throughout the past couple of years in the postseason. Dallas dominated them last year. So they got dominated. And that's really the only time we've essentially seen them.
Yeah, Is Gilgeous-Alexander that guy to you? Is he going to
define that?
Is he going to, like, I kept seeing on social media pictures of him with, and listen, what did Adam Silver say after the game? First time in 25 years, guy won the regular season MVP, the NBA Finals, and the Finals MVP. Does he have the aura that maybe a Kobe or a LeBron?
It was the scoring title.
Is this the start of something special? Or,
I mean, he's 27 years old, probably. Right? Probably.
Are you going to?
Absolutely.
Okay. I for some reason, Colin, I'm having a tough time.
I don't like his play style.
I'm a fair weather Kentucky basketball fan. Listen, all right, he was great in college too. I don't know. Do you view him as one of the? Was that one of the great runs of all time?
I mean,
is that
you're being a little great runs of all time. Absolutely not. But you're being a little closed-minded if you're not willing to say the MVP, the Finals MVP, the scoring title champion, the guy who led a 68-win team to an NBA championship in 7 games is not worthy of your respect. I think you're being a little closed-minded with that, no?
Probably. I guess I'm a gatekeeper. I've been gatekeeping the NBA this year. Like, I told you before the playoffs started, I don't see an all-time great team, and I still stand by that. Was the Haliburton thing fun? Yes. Was Oklahoma City a 68-win team, and they proved doubters wrong? I'm not trying to take anything away from the championship, but I kind of worry about the level of basketball and what we've seen in the past, and this maybe not adding up to it. Maybe I got to be more opened up to some of these guys creating names for themselves and creating runs.
I guess that leans it up. Like, what that story coming out of the game? I think he did hit it.
Okay.
I think the story is more about him Tyrese Haliburton getting hurt and what could have been versus what was.
Yep.
We watched the game. They won. The Pacers were clearly shorthanded, and you felt that because T.J. McConnell, who played very well in the game actually, who's a 15 to 20 minute guy. All of a sudden, they're asking him to be the starting point guard in every possession. They turned the ball over 22 times throughout the game. They clearly missed Tyrese Haliburton's ball handling and playmaking, and he had 9. And this was the story of the postseason. When Haliburton scores early, he is a much bigger threat scoring the ball throughout the rest of the game. Yep. That's just been it's been against the Knicks, against the Cavs. There's always that. When he scored early, he was going to be a big factor in the game. That's what we saw. He had 9 points in 7 minutes, and then he goes down. This game is more about him getting Tyrese Haliburton getting hurt and what could have been, what type of game we would have had versus the game we actually got. And it's a little anticlimactic.
No, for sure. And to that point, Kyle, I mentioned you the run in the third quarter, the 81-69 then the period. But how about late in the fourth quarter, about 2 minutes left, Mathurin gets it, and it's a 10-point lead with 2:15.
Yeah, they had a couple chances to break that.
Here's my thing, though. With 2:15 left to go, that's been like The Pacers and the comebacks have been the story. The unimaginable 10-point deficit that they faced.
You saw the 96-86 with 2 minutes to go, and your ears perked up.
But mine didn't,